Words have no power to impress the mind without the exquisite horror of their reality. Greetings, Poe fans. We are back for episode 2, Batman and the Raven, Nevermore. I am Carmen Bolden.
And I am Jeanie Smith.
And we are the Potastic 2. Welcome back. And we are going to dive into comics and Poe. And so we looked into the Batman Nevermore series, which is DC Comics. Yes. And Jeanie is going to give us a beautiful, wonderful summary of this whole series. There's 5, but she's only going to really talk about the first episode or the first volume in the series. Yes.
Volume 1 of a 5-part series.
Yes.
And of course, I'm only going to give you the overview of the first one because I don't want to ruin it. You got to go out. You got to read it.
You have to give, no spoilers. No spoilers.
Yeah. And especially even those people that aren't big on comics, this is also a cross into the literary world for us, too.
Absolutely. And we're going to speak of that later.
Yes. So the actual title is called Batman Nevermore, and it is a DC comic. It's also sponsored by Elseworld. I'm not sure exactly how they are connected to DC, but they are also part of the sponsors.
Yes, and it came out in 2003. That was the first volume. And the author was Wein. It's spelled W-E-I-N, but it's pronounced Wein. And the illustrator was Guy Davis.
Right. And the illustrations are spot on.
Yes, they absolutely beautiful.
Yes, and I mean, it's very eye-catching. That's one of the things, and we all know, especially if we've watched Big Bang Theory.
Oh, yes.
They live in the comic book store, and that's one of the things that captures you when you're looking for different comics. You want to get an impression.
Yes,
from what you're first looking at, and this is definitely is Batman. But there's a little bit of tweak to his cowl and his mask when you first see it, because he's got, instead of the bat so much, he's got a long nose like a raven.
Oh, I love it.
Yes. So
love it.
Then you got poor old Poe there with his quill and everything. But one of the things of the summary of the first comic is that they stick very much to Poe's timeline. Now, we all know that Batman was originally released in the early 40s?
I believe so.
Because Superman was the first one, and it was 1937, if I'm not mistaken.
If you would like some reference to that, go back to our I'm Poe Man episode back in season 1.
Exactly, because then once more, this season is all about being more specific and tying in more of what we've already talked about.
Digging deep.
More, yes. So in here, the very first thing that you get caught by on the very first page is the horror.
Okay.
The just aspect of a murder scene. And that murder scene is very much spot on because it's straight from Poe's work.
That's pretty cool. And I think it does take place in Baltimore, correct?
Yes. The whole premise is this is in Baltimore. And the whole summary starts out where Poe is needing to put food on the table because his stories aren't selling, which is very much true to life of Poe.
Absolutely.
So he gets a job at the local newspaper of the Baltimore Sun. So he gets an apprentice reporter's position. Now, that's pretty cool. And like I was telling Carmen at the very beginning when I started reading it, when I started thinking about it, it kind of brought back to me the homage to Superman's Clark Kent working at the Daily Planet.
Yes.
Peter Parker working for J.J. Jameson.
Yes.
And J.
Yeah,
there's too many J's in there. But the one thing that really kind of hit it home for me was how the editor-in-chief treated Poe. It was very much a rendition of how J.J. Jameson treated Peter Parker.
Yes.
So anyway, the whole kind of summary is there are these murders that's taking place in Baltimore. The murders are a rendition or a remind of things that's happened in Poe's work, which is really cool. But when he gets sent out, he wants to report on these murders. But he doesn't get that assignment because he's told that, dude, no, you're not good enough to cover these murders. You get to go play the little guy that goes to the gentleman's club and covers the upcoming mask ball for the Gotham Gentlemen's Club. Now,
Interesting.
This is the one of the things. Is like, wait a minute, Gotham is in New York.
Yes.
Why are we calling it Gotham Gentlemen's Club?
Maybe they were tying in that Poe did live in New York for a time. Maybe that's how they're tying it in. Plus Gotham with Batman. So
yeah, and I know that's one of the things. They're taking a little literary step outside of things. And you know, writers have to do that sometimes in order to make the story, and I understand that. And it was kind of cool because Poe was like, wait a minute, I want to cover the murders. Why do I have to go talk to these people? And they also play off of how Poe's background, his adopted dad was the upper echelon, wanted him to be that. And that was one of the things.
Southern gentleman.
Yes, in the comic book they play, because when Poe meets up with Batman, Raven, whatever you want to call him.
Yes.
Batman.
Well, and I think,
Raven masked Batman.
And I think that with the way they're treating Poe, you know, they're Robinizing him, and, you know, air quotes included, but we're going to call him Raven instead of Robin.
Yeah, we're going to call Poe the Raven, even though the mask is Raven-esque for Batman.
Yes.
Poe ends up being his sidekick, so yes, we'll refer to him as the Raven.
Yes.
But when Poe finally meets the Masked Man, you know, who is played by Bruce Wayne in the 1831. Sorry.
Okay, cool.
I'm trying to remember the exact date that they wrote in there, and it was 1831.
Okay.
So he's pretty old. You know, he's older. He's in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
And so when he first meets him, what I thought was really interesting is that when he shows up to investigate on his own, because, you know, he's definitely going out on his own.
Oh, he's going to.
Typical Robin mentality.
Yes.
Here. And he finds Batman there investigating, and Batman tries to run him off. And then Poe gets scared and starts to run off, but then Batman stops him when he realizes who it is.
Okay.
And he refers to him, Edgar Allan, you need to stop. And, you know, Edgar gets mad. He's like, don't call me that. And it refers to how he does not like his adopted father.
Right.
And he's like, my name is Edgar Poe.
Yes.
So that's very cool. I like how
That's a nice, homage. Yes.
Yeah, not only are they talking about Poe as a person, but they're talking about Poe as the writer and the person, and how
they're being authentic.
Yeah, and how he would act if you think about it. And how a real person would act who wants to be interested, who wants to be an investigative reporter. Remember, I'm playing back to the whole Clark Kent, Lois Lane, Peter Parker aspect of a superhero kind of thing. And so it's really interesting there when he shows up at the Gentleman's Club, and Bruce Wayne is the one that starts introducing all the other gentlemen.
Okay.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I can't wait.
Yes, because the Poe people out there who have read Poe's works immediately know these names when you start hearing it's what? Dr. Roderick Usher is our first gentleman that has been introduced.
Okay.
Then we have Mr. Pym. The next one on board. And then Dr. Help me out here, Carmen. Dr. Hold on. I got this. Hold on.
I can't remember. It's escaping my brain.
I said Usher. Who's
Usher and Pym?
Yeah, there's three main ones here.
Because Dupine's
not in here.
Not in this part.
He's not in the gentleman.
No.
He is the only thing that is referenced to Dupine is when Poe shows up at Dr. Usher's house.
Yes.
Because Roderick introduces him to Lenore as he's leaving.
Exactly. Yes.
And so Poe, and what I thought was really interesting, like I told Carmen, I said in the comic book they referred to Lenore as homely.
Yeah, and that was surprising.
Yeah, I was really interested in that.
Yeah.
Professor Jonathan Crane.
That's right. Yes.
That's the other professor. And then, of course, the retired financier, M. Valdemar.
Oh, yes.
So these are our gentlemen of the Gotham Club.
Yes.
And Poe's whole reasoning behind being here is he needs to get a story for the upcoming mask ball.
Exactly.
Which he's not really excited about that. He ends up asking them more about how the two murdered gentlemen were actually a part of the club. They were
Okay.
a part of the gentleman's club. So it kind of ties itself in where Poe's using his subversion of being there as a reporter for the society page to ask questions concerning the dead men. He doesn't get a lot because I love how Pym says, I would take this killer and he would be wise not to trifle with me because he's got his gun lying across his lap. And then they're saying, like, Pym, do you actually have any place on your trophy wall to put the murderer's head?
Right.
I'm like, okay.
Well, and one thing I was going to add with the Gotham Gentlemen's Club, too, is that, the majority are Poe characters. However, they wanted to definitely tie in and have one of the villains from the Batman world, Jonathan Crane, was the Scarecrow.
That's what I thought. That's why I was like, yeah, I know he was studying psychiatry, but I'm like, that's not really Poe.
No.
It's not a Poe character, but like we said earlier, they're taking some literary license to cross over quite a bit, where Jonathan Crane makes a big entrance in here because he's the one who's like the crazy doctor.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so
that kind of makes sense and stays true to Batman form.
Yes. And then Poe, when he starts going out of his way to start investigating the murders on his own, because, hey, that's what we got to do.
Exactly.
He goes and he starts talking to Dr. Jonathan Crane, and Dr. Crane is like got this crazy lab thing going on.
Okay.
And what's really interesting in the lab is he's got an orange orangutan in the cage. So even though you don't have Dupine as part of the Gentleman's Club, you have homage to Dupine in the story.
Yes.
And then once more, the whole license of tying it in that the House of Usher is like this crazy experimental type of place where they're doing all these wonderful things on these animals. And I use wonderful ironically.
Oh, absolutely. And that kind of ties into like some surrealism, which you really can get out of House of Usher. Definitely.
Yeah. And the one thing is that this is true. It's elevating the literary types because it's keeping the vocabulary very much to a Poe vocabulary.
And I think that is very nice that they kind of kept that, because one of the things Jeannie and I were talking about is, can comics be literature if they have that literary tone? And, it's a debate you could definitely have, because some people who are true, like people that just love comics and graphic novels and things, some people are like, yes, it is literature. And then there's the other side of the true literary canon, classical literature that's going to say, no, graphic novels and comics are not literature. So keeping that literary terminology from Poe's time, I think, builds it up into this can be considered literature.
Yeah, and it does have the standpoints, the checkpoints of having what needs to for their story, for a classical story.
Okay.
It has the vocabulary, it has the intrigue, it has the theme, the setting, the genre, all covered into one. And what makes it to me is the difference I've always seen about graphic novels and comics to classical literature is that comics and that type are more storyboard stories.
Yes, I would totally agree.
It's where you get the dialogue and a little bit of the setting aspects. It's like if you've ever acted in a play and you've ever been, that person that you have to be on the character, you have to know about the setting, where you've got the dialogue, you got where you're supposed to be in the setting. So, but you have to include and make it who you are because you are now the actor.
Absolutely.
And that's what I look at when I look at graphic novels and comics. is that when you're reading it, you are now that person.
Yes, I agree. And I know I've used storyboards to explain some short stories to my students, and they tend to sometimes understand it better when they have those visuals. And, just because, we can also kind of say, some of the imagination might be lost because of how much technology we have in today's time. And so I think the visuals are very good, especially, and also even kind of tying it in one more step, when you have movies or TV shows that give you those full action live depictions of the pictorials of it.
Yes, and I know as a teacher, that was one of the things I would always use in the classroom, is I would try to tie in what we were talking about with something that the students could latch onto in today's society.
Absolutely.
Because the kids that we were teaching...
Real world.
Yeah, real world ties. The kids we're teaching today, they don't really care about what happened 200-300 years ago, especially in literature and all that.
No.
So you have to figure out a way to make them interested.
Exactly. And I think kind of we were talking about this earlier too, that this is a definite hook into this type of classical literature from the 1800s, the 19th century, for students especially. So if you have a student that's just not getting into a Poe story, if they go and look at this comic series, they're going to have more of a connection.
Yeah, it's something that could pique their interest, because one of the buzzwords, especially when you're teaching literature and you're teaching English and all that, is to deconstruct.
Yes.
Because they don't have that type. Not everyone. There are some kids that are, born to be literature savants.
Yes.
That are going to love reading everything and anything they can get their hands on.
Classical, modern, whatever.
Exactly. But then there's some that, they would rather have bamboo shoots stuck under their fingernails.
Yes.
And made to sit in front of the television and watch the news 24 hours than to actually pick up a book and read it.
Absolutely. And I think, Jeannie, what would you say is a good age range to start with this Nevermore series for just the general reader?
Well, since they have elevated it and kept with that type of literature from the vocabulary of Poe's day and age,
And
I
the
would
reading
say,
level.
the reading level, I'd say sophomore.
Okay.
I'd say
so around
sophomore.
16, 17. Yeah.
About the sophomore age, could be some freshmen according to what level they are in their Lexile, like maybe 1100 or higher.
Yeah. And then there's some advanced readers that are even younger, but you have to think about too the graphic part of it as well.
Yeah. Because it is very graphic. I mean, it's right along. That's why they call them graphic novels.
Right. And Poe. I mean, you have...
Poe is very much the tragic, the theme of horror and all that kind of stuff. And that's the one thing between a graphic novel and a comic from classic literature. Is because in classical literature, you've got just the words and then your own imagination is building the picture.
Yes.
Whereas in comics, especially the ones like this, the picture is right along the same lines as if you're looking at a video game or if you're looking at a TV series or anything like that. It's right there in your face.
Absolutely. I mean, just the nature of the graphics that are in here, this would make the coolest video game where, you can be the Poe character and, trying to, do all the things within the game to solve the crime.
Oh yeah, and I know how, especially Legos. I'm a big Legos video gamer. I mean, you can attribute it to being old, but
yeah, oh yeah.
But I love it because the people who designed Legos video games. They are a special type of people. They are my people.
Yes.
They've got that right there to where they've got that humor that's just, when I first played the Star Wars where Chewie, and when he attacks the stormtroopers, he pops their arms off and beats them with it. So I'm like, there we go, there.
Yeah.
So I could see these people illustrating a video game using Batman and Raven, Poe, and creating something and using Poe's stories as the settings that they have to go through and solve all these. And they've got the bad guys they have to to battle with and all this. So it is very much something that they could adapt and put into today's age.
Oh yeah, and
which is even right there with them.
More influences of pop culture.
Exactly.
Yes.
I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, the illusions that we are seeing more and more, just like with the Netflix that's coming out with the Fall of House of Usher series.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like boom, they're bringing things back, but they're tweaking them to fit that people are going to love, because we've fallen back into that. We're falling into the horror and the tragedy all over again.
Right.
And so this comic, and the illustrator, Guy Davis, who does a spot-on excellent job, he's got the right amount of colors, the right kind of, influence. Like, I don't want to give too many things away.
Yeah.
But the second murder has to deal with the telltale heart.
Okay.
And he uses that color montage to draw you in.
That's really cool.
Anybody that's ever studied chiaroscuro and all that knows about the right amount of colors and how to use them
the
for
balancing,
the art and everything. And so he does an excellent job. And then along with Wein. Was it Wein?
Wein. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I said it right. Yay.
Yes.
Along with Wein's and the way he's got it written, and they just make a great pair.
Yeah, I think so too. And
they were living right up to the DC comic.
And I love too, kind of like even kind of making another remark about the color. It still has kind of that dark element of Batman, of Poe's work, that like if Poe's work was illustrated when he was, alive, it's going to have that darkness to it with the colors that are more reminiscent of being macabre or gothic.
Yeah. Like if you walked into a comic book store, this would be the type of comic that wouldn't catch your eye when you first walked in.
Right.
Because it's not got those
it's not
flashing
flashy.
red colors or greens or things that you're expecting to see when you think about the certain superheroes like Aquaman and Wonder Woman and even Iron Man and Captain America and all
and
that.
Superman, yeah.
Yeah, all those you're expecting these bright blues, reds and all this. But no, these are very somber, tragic, horror type colors.
Yeah.
That fit very much with the storyline, with the characters in the story, because even with Edgar Allan Poe being one of the first, horror writers,
right?
You got Batman, the whole Dark Knight thing.
Absolutely,
he is not going to be a happy-go-lucky.
Oh yeah, and
none of his comics have ever been anything other than drab.
Yeah, and
colors.
he's got his own tragic past that he's having to deal with throughout his entire life, which is very Poesque.
Exactly, and I think that's why Batman fits the best partnership when you're with Poe. Yeah,
I agree. And what's really cool is that there are other Poe type comics that have come out. We have from 2018, there's The Snifter of Terror, and I think we've mentioned that before, but it's the author Tom Peyer, Mark Russell, and Emerson Hunt created that series. There's 2 of the volumes, and there's also The Snifter of Blood. They're all Poe themed. The graphics on those are very wonderful as well. They're a little bit brighter, I would say. Some have that kind of dark element as well. We haven't dived into that as much. And then there's also one that was created here recently, the Nevermore Academy by Kit Trace and Kate Flynn. Kit Trace wrote it, and then Kate Flynn did the graphics. And it looks more of an anime style, and the 2 characters that are going around looking into different things are Lenore and Annabelle Lee. So that's really kind of cool. So it kind of is geared... it'd be a great audience to promote female characters and things like that. And then back in, just even thinking about the word nevermore and how Poe kind of coined that term and really popularized the term.
Right.
Back in 1971, there's a Superman arc called the Kryptonite Nevermore series. So that's even kind of cool because that was back... 51 years ago when I was born.
Yeah.
And then Dean Koontz has a Nevermore comic series that was done in 2011. They're not tied to Poe, but just the Nevermore name, just that lingers, that keeps on.
And of course, any of us that have ever read Edgar Allan Poe, the one thing that you can always trigger somebody would be Nevermore.
Yes.
You hear that word and everybody's automatically going, ooh, the Raven.
Yes.
Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes.
Nevermore.
Yes.
Come knocking at my door.
There's even some old standard songs in the Frank Sinatra genre that have that coined term, Nevermore.
Yeah. And you know, the one thing that always gets me is Stephen King. He's one of my favorite horror
absolutely
authors.
Love him. Yes.
And whenever I read Tommy Knockers, and when I was like, Tommy Knockers knocking at my door, Tommy Knockers,
you
knock
thought of
once
Poe.
more. That's the first thing that popped into my mind is like, dude, you are paying homage to Nevermore.
Yes, and he was hugely influenced by Poe as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was one of my favorite authors as a teenager. I mean, I just love Stephen King.
I love him too.
People kind of looked at me weird, but I'm like, hey, no. I mean, Salem's Lot. Now, Pet Cemetery, I only did that once. Because that was creepy even for me.
Yes.
But
And if you listen to the audiobook read by Michael C. Hall, who was Dexter, it is absolutely amazing. So if you have not done that, I highly recommend that.
Oh, yes.
Because his voice is... He is one of the best voices for listening to books where he's doing the reading. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you can get the right voice with the right stories, it can just cause shivers many, many times later after you stop listening to it. But yes, Stephen King, if we keep with the culture part of it, the pop culture, he is definitely a Poesque person.
Yes.
That the first time I heard Tommy Knockers, I was like, whoop, Edgar Allan Poe. There we go.
Absolutely. And kind of coming up, we, for October, we usually always do 2 episodes.
Yes.
We will have a Halloween special coming soon. And we will do some readings and discuss some things about Halloween, a little bit different than we did last year. We're not
instead
going
of
to
covering the history, we're just going to delve a little bit more into some of the maybe horror parts of Halloween.
Yes, absolutely. So, stay tuned for that. And then in November, we have our science episode coming.
I love science.
And this one is very close. This topic is very close to mine and Jeannie's heart, soul, and mind, and that is forensics.
Oh yes, we love the forensic side, and anybody that in this day and age that's ever watched CSI is a forensics person.
Yes.
And so Poe is definitely the person with Dupine who brought us the forensics in literature. I mean, sure, it went back farther than that.
Absolutely.
But he was
advanced
the first,
even after that.
Yeah, but he was one of the first ones that started really using it in his literature.
Absolutely. And so we're going to dig into Poe's use of forensics and then also just kind of a little bit of a history of forensics. And so that episode will be called Forensic Poeology. Show us the evidence.
Exactly. Instead of show us the money, show us the Poe.
Yes. Show us the Poe.
That's right.
Povidence.
Instead of providence, the Povidence.
Yes, the Povidence.
Yeah, we've got the Povidence right coming at you.
Exactly.
That will be soon in November.
Yes. So watch for us for those episodes on Spotify. We're also now on iHeartRadio.
Yes.
And we added another.
We're on SiriusXM. We're on, is it Screen?
Is it Stitcher?
Yeah, Stitcher.
Yes.
That's right. And Google, and you can find us in different platforms.
Yes.
Continue to check us out on our website, 6degreesofpoe.com. We are on Twitter. We've
Facebook.
got Instagram. You can find all cool things there.
We've also got our YouTube channel, which is Poe Unplugged. And also join us October 27th, and you can find this on our website under the tab Poe Unplugged. Register for the event. October 27th is our monthly Poe Unplugged, where we Zoom with anyone who would like to Zoom with us. We send out the link that day to your email, and that particular Poe Unplugged is going to be about the Black Cat. We have a link where you can read that, be prepared to discuss all of the horror elements in the Black Cat, and wonderfully enough, that particular day is National Black Cat Day, so we're going to also talk about the superstition of black cats.
Of course, and black cats are near and dear to both of our hearts because we've had black cats, and Poe, who is our mascot.
Yes,
who is a black cat.
My beloved Poe, and he sometimes shows up, and that particular Zoom, I'm definitely going to have him in it. It may take a little bit of wrangling, but he will be there for just a few minutes.
Yeah, because anybody that has a cat knows that you do what they want them to do when they want them to do it.
They choose you.
Yeah, you don't do it the other way around.
Yes.
But yes, go to our website, the6degreesofpoe.com, and you can find the Poe Unplugged where you can sign up.
Yes.
And we would love as many of them. It's one of those things to where we do discuss the readings, but it's all about getting together for other people to discuss their interpretations of Poe and their love
and new insight. And you learn so much from other people.
Yeah, and you see things from a different point of view. And that was the whole point of the Poe Unplugged. It's all about different points of view.
Absolutely. And just want to say that we had an incredible time at the Poesque in Baltimore this past weekend. Thank you all those who have visited our booth and talk to us about the Poecast as well as purchased merchandise from us. And we also have our merchandise updated on our website as well in the Poe shop.
Yeah, so please check that out too. We have some cool t-shirts, earrings, all the Poe love that you can get. We have it available. So we would love for you to show us some love.
Yes, and spread the Poe.
Not like the pandemic, but we're getting close.
Yeah. Let's not go there.
Spread the Poe.
All right. So for now, we are Poe out.
Believe nothing you hear and only one half that you see.